Education is important. We all go to school to learn. Each of us have different experiences with school. Some of us love school, and we do very well in that type of environment. Some of us struggled our way through school, and when we graduated, we never looked back and declared ourselves done with any type of learning. So why is that? Why do some students feel as if they are being dragged on their way through school? The truth is, students are mass-produced to be able to provide some sort of economical gain for society. Schools are like factories. Think about it this way. Products move through assembly lines where each employee has a specific job to do. When the product is finished, it is released into the world to do whatever purpose it was given. And we can relate that to the education system. Each teacher has their own specific subject, and students move through the teachers. Once students are finished, they go out into the world and do what they were taught to do. And the interesting thing is, assembly lines were invented at roughly the same time compulsory education became a thing. Henry Ford, the founder of Ford, noticed that the way the workers were assembling cars was kind of inefficient. So, in 1913, Ford gave each worker a specific task and invented what we now call the assembly line. In the beginning of the 20th century, compulsory education was just beginning. Countries were making public education free and requiring children to go to school. So there was a surplus of students in the education system. So what did the leaders of the schools do? They adopted Ford's ideas of the assembly line so that they could educate children faster and more efficiently. Now, this may sound dramatic, but think about it this way. Have you ever learned something you think is completely useless and you still have to be tested on it? This seems to happen a lot. We learned that the capital of the United Kingdom is London, and that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but we never learned why these things are important. Having to learn all this information in a set time causes us to just memorize it, and then we spit it back out in a test form. And who provides us this information that we have to memorize? It's our teachers. Because we have to memorize so much in a short time, we become containers waiting to be filled with knowledge by our teachers. This turns into a game. The teacher deposits knowledge and we accept it. The more the teachers fill us with knowledge, the better teachers they are. And the more knowledge we can fit into our brains, the better students we are. However, we are not objects. We have a term for this. The banking concept of education, where students are mainly seen as inhuman and just vessels to drop knowledge into. We accept this knowledge without question, without wondering why we are learning these things. Because teachers give us the knowledge that we do not apparently possess. We are seen as having nothing, and the teachers having everything. But let me ask you a question. Where did these teachers get their knowledge from? Do they remember every single detail from when they learned it years ago? No. Many teachers just read a textbook about the subject they are going to teach, and then get us to read the exact same textbook and listen to them. So who really has the knowledge? It isn't right to learn something and then act like you knew it all along. A banking educator treats knowledge as if it were their possession. It gives the educator a false sense of authority. It's like the famous saying, property is theft. We hear it all the time, but we don't really think about what it means. It means that saying something is yours when it's not is theft. When we apply it to education, it becomes much clearer. Teachers saying that certain knowledge is theirs is theft because they just got it from the textbook, and everyone could have gotten the same knowledge without having to go through the teacher to get it. Because of this hierarchy, schools also say that we cannot learn one thing until we have learned another, like a precursor. Schools say some things are beginning knowledge, and some things are more advanced that you can't learn until you know the basics. Think about social studies. Do we really need to learn the capitals of the world before we can learn the history of Canada? Why is this? Why is there knowledge beyond our grasp? If we think about this deeper, schools also take away our creative abilities. We have to do something a certain way just because it's the only way the teacher thinks it can be done. People who run the school do not care to see the world changed by the upcoming generations. They just want everyone to become the same, all become this object that can be used to create more money. And what about people who cannot become these objects? We call them dumb, disabled, failures, only because they can't keep up with the standard that the school system has, all for the sake of efficiency. We have ESL programs. They bar people from being able to take classes because of their language barriers, all in the name of knowledge. We have separate classes for people with developmental and learning disabilities, only because we see them as inferior and because they can't keep up at the same pace as other students. But it is not just these students that have hardships within our school system. Think about the way we test things. Our testing system is based on a 100-point scale, where higher numbers mean you do good and lower numbers mean you do bad. But what's the difference between the scales of someone who got an 86 and someone who got an 87? We've based our school system on a scale that we do not understand. And these points are just achieved because of certain students' ability to memorize things and just spit it back out, unchanged, in a test form. If we go to school to learn, then why do we sit in class memorizing facts so we can learn things that are actually important and useful? One thing that people call for is a new way of teaching. One where we learn why certain topics are important, where we are seen as humans and not as objects that provide monetary gain, where there is no sense of false authority because some people believe that they are better because they have knowledge, where everyone is included, where no one is left behind, where teachers not only teach, but learn from their students, where students become the teachers.